Hello, so I have another idea for a Celestials hero, and this one looks really cool. So let's begin. Okay, so this right here is Heatstroke, and Heatstroke looks super cool. He's a fire element hero, and basically he uses electrified fire that has all the properties on top of normal fire properties that electricity have. So it can now also spread through stuff like metals and water and anything that's conductible, but oppositely it also works with fire properties in the sense that you can also spread it through flammable things like gas and wood. And he would basically use his electrified fire, his electricity fire, to spread it around and stun enemies with it and stuff. So he could shoot lightning from his sword, and it would like spread and conduct to multiple people at the same time. He could, what else could he do? He could, for example, also dash with having lava puddles appear underneath his feet, just to give an example. And his backstory, real quick, is basically he's a relative of Inferno, and he has this thing where he also has inherited fire electricity powers, like I mentioned, because it kind of runs in the family, the fire powers. But then he sort of gets visions and stuff whenever he uses them too much, and eventually he sort of teleports to hell and gets stuck there for a bit. And when he gets out, he's much stronger than before. And you can also see the hell part is kind of inspired in his design. And then, his design is supposed to look really badass and like kind of hellish almost. His armor is sort of like made out of lead and looks almost like an anvil, kind of, with spikes that are heated up. So pretty cool. Okay, for his attacks. Like I mentioned before, he uses electrified fire, but another thing I thought about is when he would actually just use the swords to slice around, it would probably, because it's electrified, it would stun enemies on contact. So I just think it's really interesting to have a guy slicing around in the battlefield, and everyone he hits either like sort of gets shocked and tweaks out a bit. Sort of like they get kind of like muscle spasms, or if it's too much for them, they just straight up like pass out or something, or literally like get stunned for a bit because of all the electricity. So I think it's pretty cool, and it would also leave burn wounds because, like I said, it's electrified fire. So I think this is a really cool combination. I really like this idea. And so I already said that he would also shoot the lightning out of his sword to make it spread around and stuff. So I'll think what else he can do. Give me a second. Oh yeah, he would probably also throw his sword around like a Captain America shield, and it would probably like hit people in the face and then bounce, like it would slice them and then bounce around against people's heads, and then it would sort of chain the electricity to them. So I think that's pretty sick. He would, what else could he do? Since it's electricity, he could probably disrupt a technology that he hits with it. So I think that's a cool idea. And like I said, it can also go through water, so that kind of gets rid of some of the weaknesses of fire. And I just think that's a really cool combo. What else could he do? Yeah, so to make himself a little bit faster, he could probably dash around with having little puddles appear underneath his foot. And then he could sort of like glide around on roller skates, kind of. And if you look closely in the drawing, he actually has these heated up boots, but you can't really see his boots, like the bottom of them in the drawing. And I don't know if you can see it in the time lapse right now, but it's there. And I think like he would also be able to occasionally fly, kind of like Powerplex in Invincible, if you've seen that. He would be able to channel electricity like out of his hands and feet, and the voltage would be so hard that he would start literally flying up. It's not that realistic, but it's magic powers anyway, so who cares? I just think it's cool, a cool idea just to see a guy like have his eyes light up with like lightning, and then he starts like flying around everywhere with lightning bolts flying out of his hands and stuff. That seems pretty cool. And I also think he would have this really funny electric boogaloo attack, where basically he would charge up his sword with electric fire, and then he would start swinging it around like a maniac everywhere around him in like a 360 degree angle. And then basically when he slams the sword on the ground, the electricity would spread like everywhere around him. So that's pretty fun to think about. What else could he do? Well, I'm not sure what else he could specifically do. Maybe I'm thinking he would get some kind of ground slice attack. Oh yeah, and also if he would like jump, if he'd be like high up in the air, he would probably jump down, put a sword like in the ground, and then it would spread electric fire everywhere again. And you have to remember, everywhere where he leaves the electric fire, people get set on fire, the ground gets set on fire. And maybe leave some suggestions in the comments, because I'm not sure. I think I should tap the potential of this power more, but I didn't have that many ideas. But I think you get what he can do. It's pretty sick to think about. Oh yeah, real quick, go to the link in the description to support me on Patreon. Thanks, man. Okay, then for his backstory. So, Heatstroke, I haven't had a thought of a full name for him yet. But basically, he's a relative of Inferno, as I said. So if you remember, Inferno is like 2000 years old. And he has had many children in the time that he's alive, because he could still have children while he was in the armor. I'm not gonna explain how that works. But basically, he would then like go from life to life, in the sense that his loved ones would die, and then he would go for a new life. And eventually, his kids of like his previous family would have kids, and those would have kids. And as time goes on, Inferno doesn't die, but his old families keep having more offspring. So eventually it'd get to a point where in the present day, Inferno would just every now and then meet someone who's actually a relative of him, but he's like his great or whatever grandchild, like super far down the line. Some relatives maybe a bit closer from not too long ago. And he would most of the times be able to recognize them, or he would identify them through their birth certificate or whatever, or last name. But he would definitely be able to see them and just think like, yeah, that's a family member, and just recognize them. And this is sort of what happens with Heatstroke, but he would probably also find out the legal way. And I'm thinking, Heatstroke, like I mentioned, when he overuses his powers, he starts getting like weird visions and stuff in the beginning. And then eventually he maybe uses it on a villain or something. Maybe this is before he joins the hero force and he like trains for it or something, to give an example. And maybe he gets an encounter with a villain and needs to save people, so he overuses his powers and he beats the villain, but then he like starts to get teleported to hell automatically. And then that's where basically he stays trapped for about a week, and he has to fight off other demons in the lower parts of hell. And I feel like he would get out the same way that Moloch does in Celestials. If you'll know, he's the main villain from Season 1, which I made a video about. And so basically this would be with a magic mirror, so you have magic mirrors in Celestials. And he would probably get really lucky and find some kind of magic mirror somewhere in hell. Or maybe he would make one himself with like channeling magic or whatever. Or like praying to God. And then he would be able to jump through the mirror and escape back to Earth. So yeah, and then he basically comes out way stronger, because now he's like got experience with beating demons in hell, and his powers are extra charged up now, and he has like this cool set of armor that maybe he gathers there from like another demon or something. And I'm thinking, in the Celestial show, if you had actual episodes, maybe Inferno wouldn't have met him before yet in the show, and we would maybe see him meet him in an episode. And I feel like I said, he would kind of recognize that he's a family member just purely on instinct. And they would have a fun time together. They would maybe go do some missions together for fun. And just have a chat. So I think it's just really interesting, this dynamic, to see Inferno interacting with very far offspring in his family tree, because they are related, but it's like so far. Well, not like super far, but it is pretty far, because it's like from previous families, like the great grandchild or whatever. So they would definitely have a connection, and I think it's pretty interesting. Okay, then for his design, you can tell he's supposed to look really badass, and I really like how the design turned out. As you can see, his armor gets like kind of powered up with him, and the armor would probably be made of something like lead or whatever, or maybe netherite. So it's kind of supposed to have this anvil aesthetic, the armor, and I need to just say I love looking at this so much. The black is maybe a bit too gothic for me, but still I just like how to say, yeah, just badass this looks. Like I love looking at this juicy design. And also, if you look closely at this juicy thing that is above his belt, if you can see it in the time-lapse at least. And so you can see he's supposed to look kind of electrified. So like I mentioned, his fire properties are kind of like electric, so it's still fire, but it's electric basically. It's a very simple concept. And he, like I said, has kind of like this armor set that maybe he got from other demons, like parts or something, or he found it somewhere in like a castle in hell, to give an example. Maybe he even made some parts himself. So I think it's pretty cool to imagine. And you can see I really opted for sort of like an alternative look from Inferno, but still that you can kind of see that they're related. So I think this is a really interesting design, and maybe I'll make more characters that are related to Inferno, since he probably has a lot of grandchildren running around. And so if you'll look closely, his face looks very similar to what Inferno would have looked like back when he was a human. So like blonde hair, short blonde hair, thick eyebrows, a blonde beard, scars, but this guy has a scar on his left eye, and it's a bit different looking than what Inferno's scar would have looked like as a human. And this one also actually has tattoos, but you can't really see them on screen because most of them are on his back or on the sides of his arms that you can't see because his arms are like turned to the front, open. And Inferno would have probably had these like fire tribal tattoos as well. And maybe his tattoos would be a bit differently themed, maybe like fire with like wings on his back or something, with maybe a more hellish theme, but I don't think hellish tattoos would look so holy, so maybe just fire tribe tattoos over his body or something. Okay, and now let's go over the more individual parts of the design, just to cover everything. So you can see he has, we'll start at the bottom, he has these black boots, and if you, like I said, if you look closely, they are heated up. And then he has these black belts with armor plates on his knees that are getting powered up, the spikes on them are getting like powered up, it looks really sick, the electric effect. And then he has this cool, like almost lava looking belt that is kind of like the letter M sort of. Then you have a very beautiful bush above it. Then you have some like abs with hair, you have a scar running across the abs to the chest. And you can see his hair is like kind of blonde. Then he has this big chest with like a tiny, like a golden plate on it, with like strapped to his chest with multiple like black belts going above his shoulder and stuff. Then he has like this big bush of blonde hair underneath it. This design kind of reminded me of Zangief from Street Fighter. If you remember, he also has like a bunch of hair on his chest. Then underneath the hair you'll notice a scar on the left chest, whatever you wanna call it. I don't know what you call one side of a chest in English, maybe like a back or something. And then next to the scar is actually a tattoo around his nipple. Then he also has these big lats with armpit hair, true. And if you look closely at his back, you'll see that there's kind of like this heated up armor on the back as well, with a sort of glow emanating from it. And this would go all the way to the top, to his neck. And then he has this necklace with like a little fire symbol, which I think looks pretty cool. He has some more scars like on his neck. He has some veins, a scar running from his lip across his eye. He has one on his one eyebrow as well. And then he has like this little piece of a tattoo around his other eye. It's like this red little marking. And then you'll notice he has these two little like black clippings on his head that are set on fire. And I forgot to mention, when he's powered up, his armor looks like this, and his eyes change color from blue to like fired up. But maybe when he wouldn't use his powers, the armor would look a bit less like fired up. And so those black clipping thingies on his head are inspired by magic from Marvel Rivals. You can see this design is kind of inspired by that as well. And I noticed she had these cool like clipping thingies on her head, and I thought I'd kind of use that, but like smaller, because if it was too big, it wouldn't look fitting to me. And then he has these big shoulders, and one shoulder is kind of like looks like a cannonball armor piece with like more heated up spikes. And you can also see the bottom spikes are more so just heated up, and then the upper spikes are really like electrified and like on fire. You can really see they're like glowing because of the heat, and I think that looks sick with like the electric effects around them, like sparkling. And then he has a piece of ripped t-shirt on that shoulder. Then he has like how do you call that? A scar that's like sort of covered up with those like stitches on his around his bicep. Then you can, if you look closely at the t-shirt part, you'll also see that he has a tattoo still kind of coming out from underneath it. If you can see it on the time lapse at least. On his tricep, on that arm, he also has a piece of armor that is very barely visible on the back of his arm. And then on that forearm, you'll see these black little spots, and then he has like blonde hair, veins, and scars, because that's his weapon hand. So it has a lot of scars. And then basically that those black little spikes are piercings. So he has these black spikes that are kind of like from his armor that maybe he got in hell as like a means of torture or something, that are running through his forearm. And this is the back of it. On the front, the spikes should be bigger. So I think that looks pretty cool. Then he has some rings and some like green emerald rings on his fingers with a bunch of scars. You'll actually notice on his middle finger you can see red part of his body tattoos as well. And then he is holding his epic sword, of course, and that's has like this middle part that kind of is electrified. Then he has his pommel on the sword with the beautiful golden black accents. And then you can see when the sword is lighted up, it kind of gets like these lightning spikes on the bottom part of the sword, which I came up with kind of on the spot when I was drawing him, and I think that looks super cool. And then the sword looks absolutely amazing. It is like fully like electrified and on fire, and you can see like the sparks are flying off. And I actually really like the combination of sort of the electric and fire effect, because if you'll know, like really heated up things like the sun have kind of like these strands, like these little dangly like ropes or strands of fire like emanating from them, and electricity then has like these bands of electric like stuff kind of sparkling from them. So this kind of looks like both at the same time, and I really like that idea. Then if you'll look on his arm on the right of the screen, you'll see he has like a big shoulder with like a burn mark on it. Then he has some more scars, and he has a spike in his right tricep as well. Well, I'm saying right tricep, but I meant the arm on the right of the screen, not from his perspective. Then you'll see he kind of has like this elbow that's like on fire. You can see flame emanating from it. And then he has this forearm armor piece with just regular heated up spikes. I wanted to make those less electrified, and it looks really cool. Because I really get the impression that if I would touch those spikes, I would instantly get burn marks. So I think that's pretty cool looking. Then he has some more hair on his hands, on his right hand. Maybe I should say the perspective from his point of view, maybe. So this is actually like his left arm then. Some more rings and scars, and wait, did I cover everything? Yep, I think that's most of the stuff. Yep. Okay, I'm gonna see what else I need to say. Yes, I actually have a little document right here with some text on it, so I would remember what I need to say this time. Yep. Okay, then for a quick recap, so Heatstroke is basically just a character with electrified fire properties. He would use the sword to slice around and stun enemies with electric fire shocks. He would shoot lightning out of a sword to make it spread to people from afar. He could slam it onto the ground, his sword, and make the fire electricity spread. And since it's fire mixed with electricity, it has both properties of spreading. So it can spread onto flammable things like wood and gas, but also conductible things like metal and water. So that's a really deadly combination. He can also roller skate with lava puddles underneath his feet. He can slam his sword on the ground and go crazy and make the electricity slams spread everywhere. He can throw it like a Captain America shield and make it slice multiple people and like hit them in the face and come back. And basically his backstory, like I said, he's a guy that when he uses his powers too much gets sent to hell, stays there stuck for a bit, comes back with stronger powers. And then for his design, it's supposed to look really hellish and badass. And yeah, that's about it for the most part. So, I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I did, and see you in the next one. Bye!